Hello, hello, and once again, welcome to For Book's Sake. I am Heather Roberts.
I'm Veronica Adams, and we are 1852 Media.
We are, and today we're going to talk about the Goodreads Choice Awards fail. It's
Fail. Yes, that
it,
is.
it is a
Let's just come out swinging. It's an absolute disaster.
It's a fail. Oh my God, where to start? I mean, the biggest problem with the Goodreads Choice Awards is that once again, we talked about this last week in last week's episode, is racism in romance.
Yep.
And once again, this is a great example of where it's shown in the romance industry. There is no diversity on this list at all. It is full of straight cis het stories.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just lacking in so much lacking in diversity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and a lot of people are talking about it, as they should be. But I think more people need to be talking about it and, talking
Well,
about why this is.
I would say the problem is the people who are talking about it are the same people who do the labor in this particular area of
Yeah,
social progress every time something like this happens. And it's not fair for
right.
people who live in and ignore their privilege to expect the same people, the people who are actually hurt,
Right.
minorities, to do this labor of understanding why there is a problem and starting the conversation about what we can do to change it.
And every
Romance has been
time, yeah.
a very, very limited genre in terms of the publishing industry that has held
Mhm.
up for a long time nothing but white women of means, period.
Correct. Yeah.
And stories were all cis het, very, very, very straight, and there's just no representation of minorities of any kind for a very long time. And now that we have authors who are bravely sharing their stories from their perspectives,
Amazing
they can't
stories
get
too.
nominated for a
Yeah.
Goodreads Choice Award.
Right. And they're amazing stories. It's not like these stories aren't good. They're great.
They're amazing.
They're amazing. And, Goodreads, I should note. So the Goodreads choice, I'm going to read Goodreads' statement on the Goodreads Choice Awards.
Yes.
But they've removed 3 categories this year in addition to adding a category. So let's read their statement. Goodreads told publishers, they didn't issue a statement, but they had an interview with Publishers Weekly, and this is what they said. Our goal is to have the Goodreads Choice Awards reflect the books that are most popular with our members, based on the millions of books added, rated, and reviewed on Goodreads each year. As part of this, we have made adjustments to our categories over time, and this year we will not include children's and middle grade, poetry, and graphic novels as separate categories. Separately, reflecting the amount of reader interest we're seeing in romantasy on Goodreads this year, we are including this as a new category in 2023. We will continue to have separate romance and fantasy categories. Overall, our community is incredibly diverse in the breadth of their reading, with fans across hundreds of genres and subgenres. Goodreads. Can we not use the word diversity in your statement about a list that contains absolutely no actual diversity?
I mean, with respect to the romance category, at least.
Correct.
Very, very little diversity.
Very
I
little
believe
diversity.
a couple of the authors whose books made the list, or the short list of nominees after the first round, perhaps, are. I believe there are a couple of minorities on the list, but
the
mostly,
romance, yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, it's okay. This is all good. Mostly cishet white authors, by and large.
Yeah. I mean, if we're looking at the Goodreads list, we have Christina Lauren, who that's 2 people. It's
Yes.
Christina and Lauren, both white women. Okay.
Spoiler alert for those
So,
of you who may
yeah,
not have known.
for those who didn't know that, that's a team writing them
Christina
together.
Lauren is in fact Christina and Lauren.
Yes. White ladies. Emily Henry, white lady. Megan Quinn, white lady. Anna Huang, not white.
Yep.
that we have a little bit of diversity. She's Asian.
Yes.
Abby Jimenez, white. I mean, I can keep going down. Most of the authors on the
Hmm.
romance list are indeed white ladies.
Yeah.
And not to say that their books aren't good. I'm sure that they are, but here there are other books also that are also good that would have not even had the opportunity to be nominated in this type of a
Yeah.
contest. And the problem is we don't know the metrics. It's not like
Right.
Goodreads said like, "Oh, the books that were nominated got this many ratings or
Right.
XYZ,
Right.
add to list," or
Exactly.
how were these books nominated? There's no metrics for us to go back and look at. So again, we're just trapped in this, oh, I guess we'll trust you that these are the most popular books from this
Hmm.
their curated
Right.
list.
Right.
And yeah, and it's just not it
What's the criteria for getting there?
right. And the other concern is, and I believe Jennifer Armentrout actually came out and stated this on her Facebook page. There are some authors who are nominated multiple times.
Yep.
And Jennifer was like, I don't think that should be a thing.
Yeah.
Why am I being nominated 3 times on the same list
Yeah. what
when
what makes me deserving of taking up space that could be occupied by other authors in across genres, because
right,
Jennifer's books definitely span a
different
multitude of
genres.
genres.
Yeah,
Exactly. Why am I taking up all of these spaces when other deserving authors whose books are just as good and just as popular as mine could also be nominated?
right. And I'm sure Rebecca Yarros would also agree with that statement. She's nominated on the romance list for a book of hers, and she's
Mhm.
also nominated in romantasy.
Right.
So it's just we should have a limit here. There should be, what are the metrics? We go back to that. What are the
Yeah.
metrics? And there are a lot of creators out there who are doing the work to talk about this. And
For
once
sure.
again, doing the work when others should be doing it
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
And they're speaking out about this. So we felt that it was really
It's
important for us to speak out about it also.
listen, it's important to listen to Black women, but also stop making
100%.
Black women do all of your mental labor when it comes
Yes,
to race and racial issues. Like, educate yourself. It's possible to do that.
absolutely. And I mean, there are other authors out there to talk about. So I saw a lot of posts talking about, well, what about Kennedy Ryan? Love me some Kennedy Ryan. Kennedy,
Who
if
doesn't?
you are
Her books are
listening to
just
this,
incredible.
still adore you,
Yeah.
Kennedy. You're a lovely human. You are an
Yeah.
amazing writer. But she did not have a new release this year. So she
Right.
would not have been out. That's one metric we know. You had to have
Yeah.
been released a
Right.
book in
Right. You have to have
2023.
released a book in the year in which the award is being
Yes.
given. Right. So,
I believe she had a re-release of a past book because I think it went trad.
yeah.
So I wasn't watching too closely, but I'm pretty sure that was what happened for her this year. And she's had some other successes this year as well, but
Yeah.
not a new release to
Right.
then qualify for this list. But there's plenty of other Black authors.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we love Kennedy, but she's not the only one.
Right. Well, yeah. And it's not about, specifically fangirling specific authors of color. It's just there more and more women of color are writing
Yes.
and entering the space, and both traditionally and independently, and they deserve the accolades that their books are earning. I mean, the rave reviews and the virality, like, they write great books.
Yeah.
They deserve a platform that is equivalent to the platform that is still being protected by what I think is an institutionally racist old guard in the romance industry. Like,
100%.
the the rules are just set in such a way that you really can only truly excel if you're white
Right.
and probably writing books about straight couples. Like, it's just,
Well, that is another portion of the list. I do just want to say, I think Kennedy's name got thrown around a lot
yeah.
into this because she had written, she on Facebook, she had shared about the Goodreads Choice
Hmm.
Awards, and then basically wrote a scathing commentary about the lack of
Yeah.
diversity.
Which
And
she should
so,
not have to do, but as is her prerogative
correct.
and good for her for doing.
And yes, correct. So I think that that's why a lot of people were like, Kennedy, you should have been nominated. And I saw a lot of
Right.
that feedback when that wasn't the
Right.
point of her commenting on it to
Yeah.
be, and that wasn't I think that's why her name started getting tossed around as like
Sure.
an author of color that was talking about it. But yeah, there's so much gatekeeping to Romancelandia that we
Yes.
talked about last week.
Yes.
And this is one of the ways, a very large way that it happens. How are Goodreads Choice Awards? They have millions and millions of people looking and enjoying and voting on
Hmm.
these books. Some of these books that are being presented to these people who are voting are brand new. They didn't
Yeah.
even know they existed. So what an amazing opportunity to highlight an author of color.
Yeah.
And if authors of color can't get into these type of lists, it's just one more way that they're being
Right.
excluded
Right.
and gate kept out of
Well,
mainstream Romancelandia.
let me defensively put myself in Goodreads' shoes here,
Sure.
right? Like, we're just platforming the books that are already popular.
Hmm.
Okay, but why are those books the ones that are already popular? Because privileged white authors tend to get the bulk of fill in the blank
Right.
in terms of publishing contracts, all of the privileged places one needs to be in order to have a book succeed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the bulk of the authors who find themselves in those positions are white. Why is that? It's not necessarily Goodreads' fault, but
It
Goodreads
could
is
be
certainly
right.
perpetuating
It's likely
the
more of
institutional, yeah, the
a systemic
systemic.
issue because what we
Exactly.
noticed when we looked at the list, while there are some indie authors and indie titles on there, rather, I should
Yep.
say, a lot of the books are traditionally published.
Yes.
And what did we talk about last week? About how traditional publishers do not
Right.
allow for space for authors of color
Yeah.
in the same way that they provide space to white authors. It's
Right.
just it's not
Right.
any type of,
But how many
equality.
authors of color have had traditional deals and published books this year in the traditional sphere with the help of a publisher whose books met with great reviews, very well received, reader loved, fan favorites, and they aren't on this list.
Right. Well, and also to the question, I mean, how many books are being picked up by traditional publishers
Hmm.
with Black authors where the
Right.
traditional publishers actually give a damn about the book
Right.
and do
And support
something
it.
for it and support it in the same way? Because
Right.
that we've talked about that ad nauseum, I think, but
Yes.
it's important to talk about this again. They have absolute control and have tried and succeeded many
Yeah.
times to do what I call make fetch happen, to pull a Mean Girls reference. They, if they throw enough money behind something,
Hmm.
they can make it popular.
Right.
So they have the option to platform certain titles if they
Yes.
so choose.
Yes.
They
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 can
just
shelve trade
don't.
paperbacks in every store you shop at. I mean,
Right.
pick a big box store where you can buy a trade paperback. They can put those authors in that position. Why do some authors end up there and some authors don't?
Right. And that yeah, it's a
Who
very
who
good
gets
conversation to
who
have.
gets publisher paid for partnerships with mega book influencers on YouTube and TikTok and
Hmm.
Instagram, and who doesn't?
Who gets said, "Oh, we're going to give you an ebook only contract with no
Yep.
marketing support,
Yep.
and then we'll see how much you sell, and then if you sell enough, we'll then talk about entering into a paperback distribution deal."
Right.
But then you're on the hook for all the marketing and you're getting pennies on the dollar
Yeah.
for royalties.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And yeah, you're literally tied, you have one hand tied behind your back
Right.
in order to prove to them that you're worthy of a
Hmm.
distribution agreement.
Or we will publish you with our imprint that targets readers of color.
Yes.
And we will not do anything to try and broaden the reach across all of our segments so that
Our more
all romance
mainstream quote
readers, right,
unquote segments, which
right,
is just insane to
yeah,
me.
you're a minority. Your book is about minorities. We're going to put you in the
We're gonna,
minority box, and
yeah,
you have to stay there.
yeah, you have to live in
Yeah,
that box.
right.
And that was actually, I think back to 2016. We, my husband and I, went to um, a book event in Baltimore,
Yeah,
and there was a whole panel there about uh, all sorts of stuff in publishing. I mean, that's what you talk about. And one of the topics that came up was about how there was like an imprint of one of the big publishers, and it
yeah,
was for interracial romances, and
specifically.
specifically. And so we were talking with one of the authors afterwards, and my husband made a great point. He's like, why? Why is there an imprint specifically for interracial romances? Isn't that just a romance?
What an interesting question to be asked by one half of an interracial couple.
Correct. And I had not really considered it in the same way that he was considering it,
Sure,
right? We come from different perspectives.
sure.
And,
You're the privileged white woman in
I'm
the
the privileged
relationship.
white, yes. And so I'm constantly learning and trying to learn.
Right.
And, I was just like really struck by that. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's really fucked up.
it
Like,
is.
and I was like, oh, well, maybe they're trying to do it, because in your mind, you immediately start to try to justify things, right? And you're like, oh, well, maybe it's done that way for like categorization, or maybe it's done that way to allow people to find books easier that they like would want to read. And then you're like,
No, no
no,
2016, Heather. It's done to
no.
keep the pearl clutching racists from losing
Yeah,
their mind and
correct.
not buying all of the other books.
I mean, as soon as the thoughts came across my mind, I dismissed them. But, like you're I was conditioned, right? To think those thoughts, to
That
just
like there could be some sort of
legitimate
legitimate business
reason.
interest
Yes.
for doing that. Yeah.
No, there's not a legitimate business interest.
Yeah, there's not.
The
Well,
legitimate
there
yeah, there
is.
is,
There is,
but
but it's a racist
it's a
one.
racist one. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are the types of things that are just very accepted.
Hmm.
I mean, when we first started in the industry, even 10 years ago, it was just very clear, like, you don't put a person of color on the front of a romance book,
Yeah.
it's not going to sell.
Yeah.
And we've chipped away a little bit over the
Sure.
years at that. I think that there's more representation now
Yeah.
than there ever has been. But is there
Agree.
enough representation? No, absolutely not. But is there more? Yes.
Yeah.
Not enough, but more.
Right.
So it's just really the progress is so slow. And if we as white women are frustrated looking at this
Yeah.
progress,
Right.
I can't even fathom how infuriating
Yeah.
it must be for somebody of color who
Right.
being in this industry and
Of
seeing
course.
this day after day after day
Well,
and
and
being
I think that's
affected by it.
why it's so important for us to be having this conversation, because I don't think listen, we are not white saviors.
No, God, no.
We have so much to learn, but we're unpacking in our own way, right? Like there are not enough white cis het allies out there for every minority group who needs better representation and who needs to be fought for better inclusion in this industry.
Yeah.
Period. More people like us need to be having these conversations amongst ourselves,
Yeah.
not preaching to anybody else, but just amongst ourselves.
And we're not.
And when a member
Yeah.
of the minority group speaks, we need to shut up and listen and then try to figure out how to work in their feedback into what we're doing.
And everything, I mean, I have been listening, to others this week who've been talking about this, and it's just really infuriating that this is still where we are in the year of 2023.
I know.
And it's so frustrating. But we wanted to highlight some Black authors this week who we think are amazing.
Yes.
And that you should go and read their books.
And who published books in the year 2023 but did not get nominated for a Goodreads award.
Yes. So we have Nana Malone, who's a lovely
Love Nana
human being.
Malone.
I love Nana Malone. She has published books in 2023. She's published books in 2022, 2019. I mean, she publishes lots of books.
Yes.
And she writes amazing books. She has also co-written books with M. Malone, not the same person, but they they co-write together because they
That
have
Malone and Malone
they
thing.
have the Malone and Malone thing. So go check their books out. Fantastic books. Lots of billionaire romance in there if you're interested.
So sexy.
Yes. Then we have Brittany Cherry, who I
Yes.
adore. I adore Brittany's books. They make me cry, the majority of them.
Very emotional and angsty. Yeah.
Yes. I have to like set time aside. I have to be in the right headspace to be able to
Yes.
absorb the words.
The gut punch.
It's poetic. She writes
Yes.
poetry. It's like
Yes.
lyrical and poetic and just, oh my God, so good. She's released books in 2023. Dylan Allen, another,
Dylan,
I know,
yes.
another amazing author. We love Dylan. Yeah, Dylan has also released books in 2023. There, Robin Covington. I love Robin Covington. We love Robin. Robin is also an attorney, and I think she actually still practices. So shout out to Robin. She's one of the first people I met in this industry back in the day, and has just always been so kind and had her arms open to me and bringing me in this industry, and just I can't say enough
I love
kind things
watching your
about her.
supportive interactions with her because I've been around the two of you together at a couple of events and like just that kinship.
I mean, she's just so kind and just
lovely.
Yeah, just very welcoming. She's releasing a book this year. It's not yet released, but she was trad published for a lot of things for much of her career. But I think her next book might be indie. I'm not sure. I didn't double check, but she's releasing December 6th.
Listen, if it's an issue of indie versus trad, there have been several authors of color with traditional books, traditionally published books this year too.
Yeah. I mean, I think Brittany just there you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and I think Brittany just got a whole bunch of her one of her series sold to a trad, which is great.
Oh, she's got a trad deal for one of her backlist. Awesome.
But sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to say Taj McCoy published this year, and that book was met by rave reviews, and it was if it's an issue of trad versus indie,
there's an option for you.
Goodreads. Yeah.
Get your shit together, Goodreads.
Yep.
I don't want to butcher her name. Zhao Axelrod.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Better you than me, because I would have been so nervous to say her first name. I have no idea.
I apologize if that's not how you pronounce it. I will learn how to say it properly. But she, I believe, also had a trad deal. I've at least seen her in stores. So if she's distributing by herself, more power to her. But I do know that she's had new books this year, and like great ones. So there's options, my friends.
Talia Hibbert published a young adult romance. It was a rom-com. It was fantastic. I believe it was also trad, but still.
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
I don't either. I truly don't. Yeah, I'm just looking up the books. The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes is editor's pick for best romance.
Look at that.
It's the most anticipated on BuzzFeed, Goodreads, Country Living, Bookish, Frolic, and more. But it doesn't make the Goodreads list. It has 4,671 ratings on Goodreads with a 3.9 ranking, which is actually very good for that many ratings on Goodreads. It has a 4.3 rating on Amazon.
Yeah.
People are generally kinder on Amazon. They're, not as many trolls. Sorry. It's just not, it's true.
Well,
And it was a traditionally published title, Source Books.
yeah.
Christina Lauren blurbed it. Anyway.
You know what? You've triggered something. I think it's important for us to say that we're not trying to take anything away from the authors who weren't nominated.
No. Also great books. Great books.
I mean, it's, yeah.
I will say I also do see consistently the same names come up every year, and I'm not great on your. I'm thrilled for your success, but also we need to create a space for up and coming folks as well.
Right. I'm not asking people to give up their seats at the table. I'm asking the people responsible for building the damn table to make it bigger.
Yeah.
And add more seats to it for the people who have historically not been allowed to sit there, who deserve to be there. That's it. That's it.
I mean, if it's book sales, Christina Lauren, not to take anything away from Christina Lauren, they are now a machine in so much that they sell a book and it's going to hit the list. I mean, it's just, they write a book, and it's going to hit a list. It's to the point.
It took them a long time to get there, though.
Right.
Like it's a marathon. It's an uphill battle. They're in a different place now with their brand than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah.
So
it's very, yeah. But I'm just
I get
saying,
what you're saying,
but
though.
it's not like they're doing the same work to get on this list, or this also, and not to take away from them, but this list does not matter to them as much as somebody who, needs that exposure.
They've
have
made
the
it,
exposure.
so to speak.
Yeah,
like
they have the
exactly.
It's they're fine.
This is a really wonderful pat on the back for the work that they've done.
Right.
Totally deserved, but also what it does for them is very different than what it would do for some of the authors who should be on the list that aren't.
Right. So it's just frustrating when these things continuously happening. I understand why people are angry. I get it. It's infuriating. And I challenge you to go and read a book from one of the authors that we named, or others who you know of that you haven't read before.
Yeah.
Tell your friends about it. Put it in book clubs. Start, sharing them around. Word of mouth is so amazing for getting books heard and seen and getting the exposure necessary to get them elevated. It's how it all happens. It's how a lot of it happens.
Yeah.
Big publishers can force things with money, right? Because the more you see something, the more you're going to talk about it or be interested in it. But word of mouth can make something really, really go viral. You read a book and you tell a friend, that friend reads it, tells 3 friends. It can make something take off in a very organic and amazing way. I've seen it happen. So that's my piece. That's my piece. Oh, speaking of, I also have a book on my desk from an author of color, of MJ Mango.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. I was just
Look
looking
at you
down.
coming prepared and correct for today.
Yeah. This is a billionaire romance. So it's one of several books that are sitting on my desk in my to be read pile. So I was just looking down and I was like, oh yeah, how about that? So marketing tip of the week. I don't know if either of us are prepared for that.
I have one.
You have one? Okay.
I do.
Look at you.
I know. Well, listen, the way we have pantsed the last 5 episodes of this podcast.
Oh yeah, you have no idea, people. You guys have no idea.
Today's episode is one of the first we've been intentional about, because it is such a sensitive subject.
An important subject. We wanted to make sure.
And we are not necessarily the right people to be having this conversation.
Right. But it's important for us to talk about.
This is more about our allyship than anything else, right?
Right.
But our general marketing tip, which I did prepare, just didn't run it by Heather before we started recording.
No, it's fine. Go for it.
Is to always make sure that you are using your personal voice in your marketing. This is really important with your social media and with your newsletters. If
Yeah.
all you're doing is promoting your books and trying to sell, readers, they're just going to reject that. It's going to be really hard to keep an audience, to get
Right.
followers and
The loyal
subscribers.
readers that you want.
People want, they want
Yeah,
a human connection with you. They want a parasocial relationship with you.
they do.
They want to know about your pets or your kids to the extent that you're willing to share them. Some people very protective of family, and I get that. But glimpses of your everyday life that you can give them, your sense of humor. You know, it's important that you are sharing more than just, hey, here's my book. Hey, here's my audiobook. Hey, here's my large print paperback. Hey, I'm doing a pretty alternate hardback cover with foil. Like, you can't just do nothing but sell. You have to
Right.
also build a relationship that's about sharing bits of yourself, even if you don't get anything back from these people in terms of
Yeah.
interaction. You know, if you get
Even
a
if you're
thumbs up,
shouting into the void.
right, you need to be using your personal voice and giving them a glimpse of what your life is like and who you are,
Yeah.
to the extent that you're willing to do so. In the
Thanks.
absence of that, people just kind of get it. It's gross to just be constantly sold at all the time, and nobody's going to respond to that. You're going to find that your followers don't grow and your list doesn't grow if
Right.
all you're doing is selling every time you try to connect.
Absolutely. And it's because a lot of times it's not about selling, it's about what Veronica was saying, connecting with people.
Yes.
The big brands even do this to us. They don't say, like, Nike, here's a brand new shoe and wear it.
Right.
Why do you want the shoe? You have
Exactly.
shoes already, right?
Yep.
Like, why do you need a new pair of shoes? It's
Mm-hmm.
their commercials and advertisements
Mm-hmm.
connect with that emotional piece of you
Yep.
that wants it for whatever reason, because it's going to make you faster, because it's going to, you know, look cool on you, be
Right.
trendy, etc.
Right.
They spark to those emotions within you. You have to do the same thing. And a lot of times that comes with being an authentic human being. The easiest way,
Yes.
I think, is being an authentic human being and
Well,
saying,
as an
like,
author for sure. Maybe
yeah,
not as like a mega brand or
right,
something,
right. But
but
as an
yeah.
author, you are the person writing the book. So
Yes.
bridging that connection
Yes.
makes a big difference. And people
So
love to support people.
share your favorite home latte recipe or post about your cross stitch or your quilting. Like whatever it is you do, whoever
Yeah.
you are when you're not writing, share little pieces of that. You don't have to give them everything. You
No,
know,
of
your
course not.
social media doesn't have to be a journal, your newsletter doesn't have to be a diary, but you do need to offer the human side of yourself in order to encourage people to connect with you.
Correct.
That's how you build really loyal readers.
Yeah. Creating that community.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Veronica.
Welcome.
And thanks, everyone, for listening.
Yes.
Until next time.